I'm here today with Allie Carter, author of the Gallagher Girls series and the High Society series. Allie, you've said before that you used to work in the agricultural industry. So what inspired you to become a writer and eventually make writing your full-time job?
Well, when you grow up on a farm, you have a lot of, not necessarily free time, because you're always working and driving a tractor, maybe fence or something, but you have a lot of time for your mind to wonder. And so I think being a storyteller and a writer kind of came naturally out of that, because you see things and you wonder, hey, I wonder what happened there, or I wonder what her story is, or his story is, or I wonder what did that, and your mind just kind of starts filling in the blanks. And so creating stories and imagining scenarios is something I've always been doing.
Okay. The characters in your novels always seem to be very well developed. Do you have a process for developing the characters, and do you have any tips for aspiring writers on character development?
I think that it's a matter of layering in things, and so my first drafts, I like to say that my characters don't really show up that much in the first draft. It's really more about figuring out what the plot is and the beats of the story, and I know more internally what's going on with the character, but it doesn't always make it onto the page. And so with each subsequent draft, I try to pay more and more and more attention to characters and making sure all those little nuances and all those little tiny details make it in, so that the character is as alive to you as she is to me.
Okay. What do you think the biggest challenges are from writing a series? And do you ever think you'll write a standalone novel?
Well, I originally thought High Society would be a standalone novel, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I think that even if I set out to write a standalone, I have not a lot of faith that it would stay that way. So I'm definitely not opposed to the idea. The challenges of writing a series, it depends kind of where you are in the series. The second book is always really tough, because you have to deliver to the reader the same experience that they had with the first book, and yet you can't rewrite the first book. You have to have a new story, you have to have a new conflict, you have to have new sort of bridges that they're crossing, and so you have to deliver the same but different. And then you have to do that over and over and over again. You also, especially like with a series like Gallagher Girls, I like to consider that kind of one big story told over several volumes. So whereas an individual book might have a beginning, a middle, and an end, the series itself has kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so you have to think about things in a much bigger sort of macro sense.
Okay. If you could trade places with one of your characters in your young adult novels, which character would you trade places with and why?
Probably Katerina Bishop from the High Society books, because Kat's got a pretty cool life. She has this really awesome, neat family. She's going out with this boy who is absolutely gorgeous, and he's a billionaire, and so he has a private jet, and they can, he used to be like, hey, let's go to Milan for breakfast, and she can say, sure. So I wouldn't mind being Kat for a week, I can tell you that. Being Cammy from the Gallagher Girls series, I wouldn't like that, because her life's a little too life or death right now. But Kat, I think she can take a vacation from the drama in her life, and that's the week I would like to be her.
Okay. What have been some highlights of your career as an author?
Oh, there's things like this. I think that one of the best things about our industry is there are so many events with readers, and there are so many opportunities to get to know other authors or librarians and people that are just really good book lovers and people who really get what it's about. And so that's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. How has writing the High Society series been different from writing the Gallagher Girls?
Very good question. I think one of the biggest differences is that with Gallagher, I've had to spend a lot of time imagining what that big story arc is for the whole series. Okay, so I want book 4 to do this, and I really want book 5 to focus on this. With High Society, it's much more episodic, so each book stands on its own. When I set out to write it, I wanted it to be the kind of series like you find with adult mysteries, like a Nancy Drew, or
like separate.
Yes, where everything is kind of separate, like the old Agatha Christie type books, where you go and you pick up book 7 and you read it, and then you read book 2, and it doesn't really make any difference what order you read them in. And so that's been one of the biggest differences. And so my biggest question when starting a heist book is basically, what are they going to steal this time? And I want for each of the plots to still be very personal, because I think personal stories are always better than just, oh, it's a job I got hired to do. No, it's because this was my great-great-grandmother's brooch and I want it back. That's a much more personal story. So that's kind of where I start those books.
Yeah, and you can tell by reading the books, like High Society is more, like you can read the second one and wouldn't. I mean, you want to read the first one, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't really matter that much.
Theoretically, you could pick them up at any point, and you may not appreciate them quite as much because the relationships do change and progress. But as far as the plot goes, it should very much stand alone in that one volume.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was going for. I'm glad you got that.
Okay. Before writing adult novels, you wrote some adult novels. Why did you decide to start writing young adult novels, and how is it different?
It's different in that it's a lot more fun. I don't think I'll go back to adult. At least I don't have any plans to do that right now, because YA is a lot more free. You know, you can have crazy things happen, and young adults just think that's cool, whereas adults will be very skeptical and, oh, that's not very realistic. Well, yeah, it's not very realistic. James Bond is not very realistic, but that doesn't mean he's not awesome. And so that's kind of one of the big challenges. I like the pacing of YA a lot more. Somebody was telling me about an adult book that they really loved, and they said it's really good after the first 150 pages. And I wanted to say, do you really think I want to read 149 bad pages? I really have no desire to do that. And you don't get that with YA. And so that's kind of my home genre. I started doing it because my agent actually suggested it. She said, I think you might be good at this. Because even my adult books, they tended to be, in hindsight, that they have a lot more in common with my YA books than they have with other adult books. So I think I was just always kind of misplaced. And then I found my YA home.
Well, we love your work.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're going to do a speed round.
Ooh, I like speed rounds. Go.
Okay, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Cats or dogs?
Cats. No, dogs.
Dogs. Cool weather or warm weather?
Medium weather.
Rome or Moscow?
Rome.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Yeah.
That is naughty.
You took those from your book.
That is the biggest no-brainer of all times. Yes,
Waffles,
good.
I agree.
Well, pancakes are, I have no problem with anybody who likes a pancake. But to prefer a pancake over a waffle, I just cannot understand it. And it's a texture thing. It just is a texture.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was our last question.
Thank you.